Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very accomplished and respected professional from Newbury, UK, Penny Ferguson. Penny, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I really appreciate that. It's lovely to be talking to you.
Thank you. Penny is the founder and chief executive officer of The Living Leader. She's an award-winning author, a podcaster, and a speaker. So, Penny, my first question, you founded The Living Leader 30 years ago. What was the inspiration behind such a bold step?
Well, it's actually now, can you believe it's 32 years ago? And at the age of 50, my life was in a very, very bad space. Just come out of my third marriage. I'd lost all the money I ever had, and I was the one who had the money in all of the marriages. But of
Okay.
course, I've been brought up to believe that it was the husband or the man who looked after the money. That was a mistake.
Okay.
However, I'd lost all my confidence. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And worst of all, my second son, who had become schizophrenic at the age of 18, had just died at the age of 26.
Oh my God, sorry.
So you could say that my life at the age of 50 was in free fall. But
Mm,
one of the things that had really sort of bugged me really
mm,
was my last husband was a leadership and management trainer. I put him on a bit of a pedestal because there's no question he was very good, he's very charismatic. And it didn't matter if it was a 1 day, a 2 day, a 3 day, a 5 day program. Everybody who attended used to leave saying, wonderful, best thing I've ever done.
mm,
I thought this was incredible. But I
mm,
would then go and meet either them or their bosses 3 to 6 months later, ask lots of questions. I wanted to find out what had changed.
yeah.
And the more questions I asked, the more I thought, I can't get my head around this. At best, they've forgotten 80% of it within 6 weeks.
Mm,
But what was even more concerning to me was the more questions I asked, I couldn't identify any behavior change.
mm,
Now, to me, this didn't stack up because I thought if you're going to send people on a program to get knowledge, if they don't do something different, you've
mm,
wasted your money. So
mhm,
this didn't fit with my values. And I thought, could there be a different way?
mm,
And in the year after all of this happened and filled out, I did all sorts of weird and wonderful things, nothing like I do now. But I also went on a lot of personal development programs, your big
mm,
names, Tony Robbins, Landmark Education, all of these big ones. And I met
mm,
a lot of business people. And I said, how do you use what you're learning here back in the workplace?
mm,
99% of them said they didn't. They said, you can't take this personal development stuff into the workplace.
mhm,
People will think you're peculiar. And
mm,
I thought, that's interesting. I wonder if they see themselves as two different people, one for home, one for work.
mhm,
That means you've got to remember when you go into work to pick up the skills toolkit. But all of you goes home, all of you goes to work. So I thought, I wonder if I could bring these two halves together in a way that's acceptable in the workplace and people don't
mm,
go, oh my God, it's go and hug a tree type program. And I'd love to tell you I'm brilliant at program design, but I think it would be an out and out lie. To this
mhm,
day, will swear that somebody up there gave me this
mm,
program and said, this is what you're here for in this lifetime. Get out there and do it. Anyway,
mm,
nobody knew who I was. So it was phoning friends, friends of friends. And I managed to find a little group of six
mm,
to come and pilot it in my dining room.
mhm,
And I was very adamant there had to be a break in the program. So
mhm,
2 days of intense learning, a
mm,
gap of about 3 weeks. So people would still feel they're on a program
mm,
and they knew they'd be asked when they come back. So what are you doing differently? So it'll help them begin to develop behavior change. Anyway, I was so nervous. My voice was trembling. I was probably shaking. And I did this 2 days. And somebody whose name I will remember all of my life,
mhm,
Annabelle Parahia, was head of all development training for Sun Microsystems in the
mhm,
UK. And she said, Penny, that 2 days has just changed my life.
mm,
I went, oh, haven't got the faintest idea why. She
mm,
said, I want more people from Sun to come through it and see what they think.
mm.
So I started running programs for Sun, and my goodness, that's where my leadership journey started. But
Wow.
there's a couple of things that came from it that staggered me.
Mm,
First thing was, I realized I had not understood leadership before. It
mm,
was delivering the program where my leadership journey began.
Mm,
Secondly, I realized that the leadership, that it was simple. It was incredibly simple. It may not be easy,
mm,
but it was very simple. And
mm,
the other thing I learned, which was sad beyond belief, was the more I learned, I realized that with all of my six children,
mm,
I loved them so much and I'd made so many mistakes in my life that I wanted to make sure they became the best they could be. For all of their growing up time, I was managing them, not leading them. I
mm,
was teaching them how not to think for themselves.
mm,
We've now had over 87,000 people go through the program. It's been translated into five languages and in the middle of being translated into the sixth. And it's been unbelievable. And then COVID hit, and that was another transformation
I,
time.
I know.
That
I
was,
know.
that was because, of course, all training stopped dead. So
Yeah.
here we were, successful training disappeared. So
Mm,
suddenly it was lots of invoicing to zero. And my younger daughter, who is now my managing director, had been saying to me for a long time, "Now, Mum, I'm sure we could do this program, virtually." I said, "No, no, 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 it won't work."
mm,
Well, this now was, we may have a problem here. I spent the first 6 weeks of COVID talking, frankly, to my bloody telephone,
mhm,
literally filming the entire program on my own out here
mm.
in my office.
Yeah.
And then we turned it into a 10-week program. We picked up a huge client in America, one in New Zealand, one in Germany. And so it's been incredible. So,
Wow.
in many ways, we're a one product company, but people still consistently say, "I did your program 10, 12 years ago. It changed my life." And
Amazing.
all it is common sense. It's
Mm,
incredible.
absolutely. You also describe your program as self-selective, challenging, and provocative. Why was it important for you to build these characteristics?
Well, I've got to be honest here. I'm not sure I thought about building them in. I really don't. I
Mm,
think it was as I delivered the program, I began to realize what was happening.
mm,
You know, this is the crazy thing. Before I stopped delivering the program, I
mm,
decided to stop delivering at COVID. I thought I've done my stint.
mm,
I was mainly running program for the top teams of big corporates, big
mm,
companies.
mm,
And always the day before, I'd get really nervous. I'd think, they're all going to find me out here. They're all going to know this stuff. They never did.
mm,
And it always staggered me. So I think we found a way, and it was so keen to me that I wanted them to get as many light bulb moments or
mm,
aha moments as they could.
mm,
And so having people begin to understand that nearly always what's in their heart is leadership. I think so many people believe and want to be great leaders, but what comes out of their mouth is straightforward management.
correct.
And they don't know that, they don't recognize it until you can link things together in a way that makes them go, aha. And when I say that, if you like, it's provocative, but it's kind of interesting. We have some CEOs
Mm,
who I've worked with now for 25 years. Whatever company they get asked to go into another
mm,
company, they take us with them because they know it makes a difference.
right.
Some of our clients, CEOs, have done it 5 or 6 times. You'd
Mm,
have thought they'd have got it by now, wouldn't you?
yep.
So
Yep. Yep. Yep.
they do it 5 or 6 times.
Mm,
And yet, quite often, when they do it the second or the third time, they go, "I completely forgot that."
mm,
I think you take from the program what you're ready to hear at
mm,
that time. And if you do it a second time, we've had people come back and say, "You didn't do that on the first program. You've changed it." No, we
mm,
haven't. No, you have. You didn't do it before. I know. Why don't you look back on your old notes?
mm,
Oh, yes, maybe you did, because they weren't ready to hear it.
mm.
So it's almost like building blocks, but
Fascinating.
it
Fascinating. Absolutely. But Penny, as I was reading about you and preparing for this conversation, a central message that I picked up is to change your life, you must first change yourself. How do you help leaders internalize this very simple and yet very difficult concept?
Well, as I said to you, I had this hang up. There had to be a gap between days 2 and 3, about 3 weeks. So when they come back on day 3, we will. go through an exercise quite early on, first of all, asking what's changed, what's different.
Mm,
And then we'll pull it together with them, saying, okay, how do you think you're different?
mm,
And they'll come up with things. I'm calmer, I'm happier, I'm more able to hear things. There's all sorts of different things they come up with.
mm,
I'm more authentic, I'm more thinking. And then we say, okay, so what are you doing that's different? And it could be, I'm keeping my mouth shut. I'm asking more questions. I'm asking incisive questions to help other people think for themselves.
mm,
And I'm holding back on giving advice. So they come up again, it sounds very little things. And then we say, what are the results that you're getting? And sometimes they're incredible, and they can range from my team's more motivated. Gosh, I'm doing less work because I'm finding they're coming up with more and more ideas. They're great ideas. They didn't need me. Through
mm,
to, I
mm,
still remember a managing director coming back on a day 3, and he said, I don't understand it. I shared with you on day 1 that
mm,
I was exhausted because I have a little 2-year-old son who's really naughty. He sits on the naughty steps
mhm.
about 3 times a night. Since I've been on this program, he sat on it once in
Mm.
3 weeks.
Wow.
Now, that's when I'm able to then say, right, I want you to look at those 3 things:
Mm,
how you are different, what you're
mm.
doing that's different,
Yeah.
and what you're getting. I didn't ask you to come on this program because you're
Mm,
going to get all these things. If I told you we're going to get all these things in 3 weeks, what would you have said to me? And
mm.
they say things like, well, you wear your knickers on the outside, or,
Yeah.
that sort of silly thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But then I say, all I've kept challenging is how
Mm,
do you want to be? This gives you the hard evidence that
mm.
leadership is not about changing others, leadership is about changing you. So that's how we embed it. And that's sort of, oh my God, yes,
Mm.
interesting.
How interesting. There's another thing that fascinated me, and that was that responsibility and the power of choice are key pillars in your program. How do you guide people towards embracing responsibility and power of choice fully?
Okay. We show them a model, one that I designed, and we get them to understand how beliefs drive behaviors and how responsibility is key.
Mm,
And we have a second very simple model that says basically between stimulus and response, you have a choice. And
mm,
in that moment, that is where you have your moment of choice.
mm,
Most of us don't allow ourselves that opportunity. And I'll give you a home example rather than a work one at this point. When my children, I said they were growing up and I was managing them,
mm.
how I would, in fact, can I give you a definition of what
Yes,
we
please.
see as the
Yeah.
difference? We say that outstanding managers drive people to perform at the highest level they're capable of.
Mm,
Very much about control.
mm,
Outstanding leaders inspire them to do it for themselves. It's more
mm,
about freedom. So
mm.
that's our definition.
Yeah.
Now, with my children, what I was doing all the time because of my love for them and my track record of having a few disasters in my life,
Hmm.
I would be giving them advice all the time. I'd be giving them advice as what would be a good thing to do. I'd give them advice if I thought they were going to do something that wasn't useful. They'd come and ask my opinion. I'd immediately, not even hesitate, give them the best idea advice. And I believed that that was the thing to do.
Mm,
I was educating them how not to think for themselves.
mm.
They would, and literally saying, you can't think for yourself.
Right.
They could never be better than I was yesterday. And
Mm,
what I was depriving them of is responsibility. And the
mm,
biggest gift you can give anybody, I believe, is helping them take responsibility for their own life,
mm,
recognizing that nearly always the brain that has the problem always has the solution.
mm,
Your role is to help them find it.
mm,
But I was getting it so badly wrong through loving them and through not knowing. So
mm,
getting people to begin to widen the gap between stimulus and response and say,
mm,
what is it you want with your children, with your team, with your colleagues?
mm,
Do you want them to come to you every time they have a problem? Or do you want to help them become strong,
mm,
independent, and feel so good about themselves because
mm.
they're able to begin to solve their own problems?
Amazing.
So
And
that's the sort of way we work.
no, no, this is fantastic inputs you're giving me and my viewers and listeners. But my next question, Penny, is that based on all the work that you do with thousands of leaders, what are some of the common mindsets or behaviors you see leaders holding back?
Um, well, let me share with you the leaders that I have worked with. Some of them I've worked with about 25 years.
Hmm.
It's very interesting. You will find those leaders are the most authentic people you can come across.
Mhm.
They have no fear about saying who they are.
Yeah.
They have no fear about saying when they're getting it wrong. And they do their damnedest to make sure that they're standing back to let other people make the decisions so they take ownership. They
Mhm.
ask questions far more than they give opinions.
Hmm.
Um, they're very calm people. They're very rarely loud people. They're nearly
Hmm.
always quite quiet, gentle people.
Mhm.
And that I think some people find surprising.
Hmm.
Mm, their strength is in their ability to listen. And all of the people, and I will introduce you to them so that others of your listeners can get the opportunity to maybe hear some of them.
Yeah.
Um, they Once people have worked for them, they never want to work for anybody else. And if they
Mhm.
go to another company, they just pray that they're going to get
Hmm.
a call, say, "Will you come and work for me?"
Hmm.
So listening is key for them.
Hmm.
Focusing on people's strengths.
Mhm.
That's another thing they do.
Hmm.
A lot of the time, and again, I did this with my children.
Hmm.
And I'm sorry to keep coming back to home because to
No, no,
me,
please.
that was my most important
Yeah.
leadership role,
Yeah.
not just all the clients I worked for.
Hmm.
I used to believe that my role, and I think a lot of managers believe this, is to see where people in their team, and like with me, with my children, they're getting it wrong,
Hmm.
so that you can help them, give them advice as to how they can do it better next time or
Hmm.
what they can learn from it. And you think you're being helpful.
Mhm.
The reality is that what you're doing is all the time getting them to put their attention on a
Hmm.
behavior that
Right.
they don't want, you don't want.
Hmm.
Whereas what the best leaders I know, they're always looking for what people are doing well.
Hmm.
What they do is they tell them. So I believe when you get somebody in the workplace who's underperforming, they know when they wake up at 3 o'clock in the
Hmm.
morning and they lie there worrying. They know that they're doing something wrong. And the more they focus on it, the more they're like to make it worse.
Hmm.
All you need is somebody to really start focusing on what you're doing well.
Hmm.
And that is the best modifier of behavior that I know. And let's say, for example, I'll give you a work example. This is not a
Right.
real one, that's just
Yeah.
giving you an idea. Let's say that you have a boss who just does not listen to you.
Hmm.
So when you go in to see them, you know that they're half looking at their phone or they're half looking at their messages and they've got one ear on you and they're not really paying, they're not listening.
Yeah.
And it really, frankly, pisses you off. And
Hmm.
so you keep saying, "Boss, you're not listening to me."
Hmm.
And the boss is then likely to say, "Yes, I am." And they quote the last sentence back at you, which irritates the hell out of you, but
Mhm.
that's what they have to do. They still haven't really listened.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is putting their attention on a behavior they don't want. However much we know they're
Hmm.
right, we don't like being criticized.
Hmm.
But supposing you look for something different, supposing one day they come in and you need to go and talk to them, and they could have been out the night before, they've got a bit of a hangover and they're a bit, oh God.
Hmm.
So actually, by accident, they listen to you.
Hmm.
That's what you jump on. Boss, I just want to say thank you. Do you know the way you listened to me just then, you got
Hmm.
far better thinking from me. And I really, really value that. It meant a lot to me.
Right.
And I know that I delivered better for you.
Hmm.
Oh, that felt nice. Maybe I need. So, what you're doing is putting your attention and their
Hmm.
attention on a behavior you want. But
Hmm.
it's not how naturally we do it. The
Yeah.
best leaders do it.
What a
They
great
do.
response. Yeah. What a great response. Penny, you've also worked with some of the world's most successful business leaders. What sets them apart when it comes to evaluating their willingness to change?
That's a heck of a good question. Um, we have had one or two CEOs come through who I now rate very highly. And when I first started working with them,
Hmm.
one of the things I'm thinking of one CEO in particular, he couldn't understand why people needed to know anything about his private life.
Mhm.
To him, work was work and private life you kept very sort of to yourself. They didn't need to know that.
Hmm.
And I worked with him. One of the things on our program that we do, and this is very at the beginning,
Mm,
we say, okay, we'd like you to introduce yourselves to each other. And you can see some people all in a team think they've been working to, oh God, what's she doing now?
mm.
And we ask some specific questions. Tell us a little bit about who you are, not just this is my job, this is my role.
Yeah,
I'm married and I've got 11 children and 23 dogs, and I live in the country and I travel to Barbados twice a year. I've actually got a mistress out there as well, and whatever. And I
yeah,
make it all
yeah,
very jokey to say, tell us who
yeah,
you
yeah.
are. Okay, what are three things you feel really good about in your life? Can be anything.
Hmm.
Doesn't have to be an achievement, something you feel really good about. What's the biggest challenge or opportunity that you have in your life right now? What are the three things that you want to get from this program, these 2 days, first 2 days? And what are three things you want to give? Now, s- that particular CEO was, oh my God, go first. If you don't open up, none of the others are going to do it because they won't
Mm,
feel safe.
mm,
Now, I know this is what's really funny. That particular CEO, the first time he did it was, oh God.
mm,
The last time I ran a program for him,
mm,
which was now about 6 years ago,
mhm.
there were only 8 of them in the team. We started this at 8:30 in the morning. They didn't finish those questions until 4:30 in the afternoon. I was
Wow.
thinking, how am I going to get through the program? Oh my
Yeah.
God. He actually said to me, Pen, I don't care what else you do or what else you cut out. I've
Mm,
got everything I need. Because if you want to have any team, a
mm,
proper team, not
mm,
just a group of people working together,
mm.
the most critical thing that you have to have is trust. If you don't know people
Yeah,
at a personal level, how the hell are you going to trust them?
correct,
How are you going to trust them?
correct.
So every time what you see happen, and I can still remember a deputy head teacher, we took a group of the top of a school through,
Mm,
and the deputy head teacher, I went to meet him about 3 months later
mm,
and say, how's it going? And he said, Pen, I can't believe the change in this team. He said, I just can't believe it. He
mm,
said, our meetings are different, the way we work together is different. He said, I have worked with some of these people for 14 years and
mm.
I realize I didn't know them.
Amazing.
So for me, for leaders having the courage to be vulnerable, the courage to be authentic, the courage to be open,
Yeah.
for me is key. And a lot of people don't recognize that there's
Mm,
huge strength in vulnerability.
mm.
Yes, you are putting yourself out there,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
what an amazing thing to do.
Amazing, amazing. Penny, I have time for one more question for you. And this is one is for you now personally. What an amazing journey you've had. You've trained so many people. You've had your own sets of challenges. You've had your own opportunities to build such an amazing business, and yet you've given back. I mean, you gave away. You donated your program to the Marketing Academy. You work with the Magic Breakfast. What does legacy mean to Penny? And how do you view your own legacy today?
Well, do you know, for about the first 5 years, and I still get a bit uncomfortable. A lot of people come to me and say, Penny, you changed my life.
Mm,
And I really find it difficult. For the first 5 or 6 years, I almost disassociated myself from the
mm,
program.
mm,
But I say to people, no, I didn't change your life.
mm.
You did it. I'm just the catalyst.
Right.
You did it. Okay. I still have a dream. I have a vision, which is crazy, really. When you think that I do what I do, I have no qualifications. I've never worked in a business. I always say I'm just a housewife who had a dream.
Mm,
And it's taken me a lot of courage to be authentic
correct.
and say, this is who I am very openly. But my vision and what I would love and give anything in the world to achieve. And I'm 82 now, I'll keep working until I'm on a Zimmer frame and
Mm,
they have to put something over my mouth to shut me up.
mhm.
I would love to see it come as part of the school curriculum
Oh,
so
amazing.
that young people, before they leave school, have the opportunity to recognize that they can choose the life they want,
Mm,
that they can understand how to work with it. They can understand how to give. They can learn to say, I have no control over get. What I have total control over is give.
Yeah,
And that, more than anything, will give them the confidence to be able to step forward. I just think there's so much that I still want to do and want to achieve. We
absolutely.
are starting to get it into some schools.
Mm.
A lot of head teachers are now coming through, and it's very exciting, but I've got a long way to go. So ask me again in 10 years.
I'm sure I'm going to, probably reach out to you again in a few years and say, let's do a quick update on where you are, Penny. But on that note, thank you so much for speaking to me about your own amazing journey. Um, Thank you for speaking to me about your own challenges. We covered some very interesting thoughts from you on your personal leadership program, on how you seem to have changed the lives of so many leaders. And you're being very modest when you say that you didn't change them, they changed their own lives. But I think the building blocks were really put in place by you. Thank you also for speaking to me about what are some of the challenges leaders face, what sets them apart, and finally, what your own legacy is. And I'm sure I'm going to be seeing lots of you in the next 20, 30, 40 years. Thank you again, and good luck to you.
Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.